Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. What's up, Ryan Tannehill? I know we're going to chat him a little bit later. I'm just very concerned about the Titans.
You should be.
Yeah.
You should be.
Remember when I loved them atop the AFC? Not anymore. I do love some Saquon Barkley. I would love a signed Saquon Barkley jersey. That would be very nice. But he's officially going to start today against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you guys think of Saquon?
I mean, look, if Saquon's in the lineup, which obviously he is, you're starting him.
Yeah.
The end.
The end. The end, Saquon Barkley fantasy managers. Welcome in again to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. I'm Kimmy Chex. He over there is Michael Florio. He in the middle is Marcus Grant. And you guys, we survived Thanksgiving. Full bellies,
Barely.
full hearts, can't lose. How was it?
I still have food in the fridge, which is honestly great because that means I don't have to cook for at least another day or so.
Yeah?
That's the best.
Yeah, leftovers
Right?
are like, it's always better leftover. What about you?
I haven't even gotten to our leftovers yet. It's Nicolette's birthday weekend. Happy birthday. So we've
Yay, happy
been
birthday,
going out
Nicolette.
all weekend. I just have a fridge full of leftovers. I'm already so full.
I'm officially putting up the Thanksgiving food. I have gorged so much the past few days. I'm done. I'm going to make some turkey soup
Right, this is the
and
best
call
part.
it a day.
This is when you start making soup with things like your leftover turkey or leftover ham. You can make some soup. It's great. It goes for another few days. It's awesome.
Hey, but Thanksgiving wasn't just about food. It was also about football. We have some exciting games, but we got even more to get us ready for Week 12. As a reminder, make sure you send us all of your questions at NFL Fantasy so we can answer them, maybe even live on the show. Let's go ahead and get to our latest injury news. See our notable actives and inactives in our early games. Good news if you have Cordarrelle Patterson or Damian Harris, Saquon Barkley or Hunter Henry, all those guys suiting up to play. Bad news, as we kind of expected, Michael Carter is going to be out the next few weeks for our afternoon games. Elijah Mitchell is officially questionable, as is Allen Lazard and Marquise Hollywood Brown. Donovan Peoples-Jones is expected to play. Aaron Jones, another Packer, he is a game-time decision. We're going to hammer in to those a little bit later in the show. Just a brief little overview in case you have some of those guys in your lineups. But when we open the show, there was Ryan Tannehill. He was getting ready to go up against the New England Patriots. And the Titans, where they started versus where they are now, it's not so great. No running game whatsoever. King Henry is still out. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones both on IR. So is Ryan Tannehill worth starting in fantasy leagues today?
I don't want it. Not this week. You know, there's so many. There were stories during the week that Ryan Tannehill was having to introduce himself to new teammates because they've had to just shuffle that many people through. That seems bad in week 12.
I don't think that's a good thing.
Right, like, you know, if this were August, it's one thing. It's week 12, right? We're past Thanksgiving. He's introducing himself to new teammates. The Patriots' defense has been pretty good. I don't really want any part of this.
Yeah, I was saying sit Ryan Tannehill before A.J. Brown was put on IR. Without A.J. Brown there now, I think it's an even easier sit. Like, Bill Belichick game plans to take away the team's best offensive weapon.
Yep.
I mean, who else besides Ryan Tannehill are you focusing on right now?
Nick Westbrook-Akine, duh.
NWI there,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is exactly. But who are some quarterbacks you're starting over Ryan Tannehill?
A lot. Like, I would be using I know Mac Jones on the other side of that. I haven't been the biggest Mac Jones supporter, but I would use him. I would use Tyrod Taylor over Ryan Tannehill. So I think there's a lot of names on the waiver wire. Like, Tannehill is barely even in my top 20 quarterbacks this week.
Take note of that, all the fantasy managers with Ryan Tannehill. Maybe it's time to get your second stream guy in the starting lineup this week against New England. Some good news for the Cleveland Browns. Kareem Hunt comes back today. So are we going to start Hunt? Obviously, yes?
Yes, we're absolutely
Okay.
starting Kareem Hunt.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, we're starting Kareem. Because, like, if there's any team that has hacked the two running back rotation, it's the Cleveland Browns, right? Like, in most teams, we see two running backs, rather, and we're all like, what are we going to do? Like, the Browns are like, whatever, start Nick Chubb, start Kareem Hunt. It's all good. So, yeah, there aren't a lot of guys that I would start ahead of Kareem Hunt this week just because with the passing game being kind of a mess, with Baker sort of being banged up, although I know that they say he has no limitations, we know they're just going to lean on Chubb and Hunt, and everything's going to be good there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of questions on Twitter, like, what do we think the Browns' backfield is going to look like? And it's what it's looked like the last 2 years. Like,
yeah.
Hunt is going to get a lot of the passing. They're going to split work near the goal line. Chubb is the early down back. It hurts Chubb a little bit, who was getting more pass game volume with Hunt out, but I still think you obviously are starting Nick Chubb.
Very good things. Kareem Hunt's back. Nick Chubb's going to be great. Things are looking up for the Cleveland Browns and for you as well, fantasy managers. It's time now for Waiver Wire, presented by our very good friends over at KFC. Here are some notable free agents who are still available in over 50% of NFL.com leagues. We got Latavius Murray and Rashad Bateman still. Van Jefferson, even with that Odell Beckham Jr., Nick Westbrook-Akine, even though we're not so hot on the Titans, Pat Freiermuth, and Ty Johnson. Now, we all need a waiver wire hero. So, Marcus, who's a hero for you this week? Off menu, on menu? What are we feeling?
I think maybe I don't think he's off menu here. But so we're going to go with the Kendrick Bourne identity this week. That's what we're doing. Look, I know that we sort of like Jacoby Myers, and we were all very excited when he finally scored a touchdown, and congratulations to him a couple of weeks ago. But you go back to week 6, it's been Kendrick Bourne that's doing a lot of the work. He's second on the team in receptions since that time, but he leads in receiving yards. He's up there in targets. He's leading the team in yards after the catch. So, like, you get those sort of plays from him. So I like the matchup. The Titans have struggled against wide receivers all year long. And look, I'm not expecting him to go out and give you, say, a 25-point game. But if you're talking about picking him up off the waiver wire, plugging him in as a second or third wide receiver, he gets you double-digit fantasy points. I don't think you can complain about that.
No, you can't. What are you?
I'm going with Rex Burkhead here. I know all week I've been speaking up the running backs in this game, and I like Ty Johnson and David Johnson, but they were like top waiver wire targets this week. So if they got picked up, I think Rex Burkhead is a good pivot. He had 18 carries last week. They don't love throwing him the ball, but we know that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He gets some goal line work at times, and this is all about the matchup. The Jets have given up the most points to running backs in the last month, and by far on the season. So it's just about, what could be a competitive game. I think he could get a good amount of volume in a great matchup.
Hashtag Rex in the flex.
Oh, okay. Marcus has got a hashtag in case you pick him up. But you mentioned that we've hyped up the running backs in this game. You also mentioned Ty Johnson. He was on our menu, and that's my waiver wire hero for Week 12. You mentioned a lot of people probably went to go grab him, and that's because earlier this week the news broke that Michael Carter's going to be out for a few weeks, and it's looking like Ty Johnson can be an incredible pass-catching option at the running back position for the Jets. Zach Wilson's going to be starting again today against the Texans, and if you look at the damage Johnson's been able to do through the air, it's quite impressive. He's averaging just over 40 receiving yards a game since Week 6, so very good numbers. So if you picked him up, go ahead and plug him in. All right, gents, we ready?
Yep.
It's time for 15 for 15 presented by Geico. I want to hear some of your favorite starts, especially at the quarterback position, Marcus.
Well, let's start with Tom Brady because, why not? Look, he's 3 months younger than me, and I don't feel like I'm half as healthy as he is right now. So I need to figure out what his diet is.
Avocado.
I know I eat too many strawberries apparently. Cam Newton.
He doesn't like strawberries?
Apparently he doesn't eat them. I'm calling crap on that, but that's a different story. Cam Newton, a good start against Miami. Jalen Hurts, who's been great all year long. Tyrod Taylor, I think is an excellent start. I'm pretty sure we'll talk about him at some point later on in the show against the Metropolitans. But let's also talk about one James Garoppolo, he who has a snow leopard named after him at the San Francisco Zoo. That's a fact. Look it up. But on top of that, over the last month or so, he's been a top 5 quarterback across fantasy. A couple of games with over 19 points. He's given you 2 touchdowns in 4 straight games. And going against a Vikings defense which has struggled against the quarterback position lately, this whole offense has gotten better once George Kittle has gotten healthy. And Jimmy Garoppolo has had some pretty good fantasy performances to show for it. It's good for him. Stinks for those of us who've been waiting on Trey Lance.
Just going to say, what about Trey?
Yeah,
Where are you, Trey?
We can forget about Trey right now. But Jimmy G's a nice streaming option this week.
I love it. All right, Florio, I want to hear some of your favorite running back options.
James Robinson, I know he got up a little slow last week, but great matchup against the Falcons. A.J. Dillon, I would use him even if Aaron Jones plays, but it is now looking like Jones will play, which hurts Dillon a little bit. Melvin Gordon, I still really like him this week. Myles Gaskin there against the Panthers. I know it's a little bit of a tough matchup, but he gets safe volume. And then Antonio Gibson against the Seahawks.
What?
I know Antonio Gibson has been struggling as of late, but the one game in the last month that we've seen him put up good fantasy numbers was against the Bucs of all teams when they had a lead. He was able to find the end zone twice. This game against Seattle, you have to wait for it till tomorrow, but Seahawks struggle mightily against the run. They give up the second most points to running backs. Plus, Russell Wilson has been struggling mightily, so I think this game could actually be very close. And if that's the case, I expect to see a lot of Antonio Gibson.
I don't don't know if I trust him. I don't know. I'm a little nervous, but you do make some good points. If we've talked quarterbacks, we've talked running back, it only makes sense that we dive into some top 5 receivers for you, Marcus.
Yeah, let's start with Elijah Moore, who's been the new hotness for the Jets offense lately. Glad to see it. Brandon Cooks, I know, was sort of a disappointment last week, but this feels like a bounce-back opportunity for him against the Jets. It's weird. We spent a lot of time this week talking about Jets and Texans, which on paper doesn't really make sense. But
who would have thought?
Who would have thought, right? Devante Smith, who is in the midst of a very good rookie year. I think that continues. Brandon Ayuk, who has come back into our lives over the last month or so. That's good to see as well. But let's focus in on DJ Moore taking on the Miami Dolphins. Now, I know last week wasn't particularly great, and he kind of slumped in the middle of the season. But I know that in the past, he and Cam Newton had a good rapport when they were first together in Carolina, and I think that's going to come back, especially today against the Dolphins. That secondary has had its issues, and for the most part, DJ Moore has been the top target in this offense. I think it's just a matter of time before he and Cam really start clicking again together, and I think that starts today.
I love that.
You like that?
I love that. I do
Sweet.
love that. I've been a DJ Moore truther. I'm like, yes, I'm going to stay in DJ Moore, but especially with Cam Newton. Now, we got to talk about my tight ends. You know I love them. Come on, Florio.
Your favorite position in fantasy. Mike Gesicki for Adam Ray. I think he's basically a must start now with the volume he sees each week. I would be getting Gronk back in there. I love his chances of scoring a touchdown. Noah Fant in a good matchup against the Chargers, who've struggled against tight ends. Evan Ingram in the best matchup tight ends could get against the Eagles.
Evan Ingram.
If you can't do it this week, Evan Ingram, I'm done with you. And then Pat Freiermuth there against the Bengals. And the reason I love Freiermuth is he's been getting a lot of consistent volume as of late. He averages over 18 fantasy points in games without Eric Ebron, who is now on IR. And then lastly, we talk about it all the time. When we talk about tight ends, you basically want a touchdown. Well, over the last month, no tight end has scored more touchdowns than Pat Freiermuth. So get him up. Get the Muth in your line.
The Muth is loose.
The Muth is the truth. How's that?
I like it.
Honestly, Naji Harris and Pat Freiermuth are the only two guys I fully trust on the Steelers, so a very good pick at the tight end position. It's time for us to go take a break, but I promise we will be back so soon, and when we do come back, we're going to go to our DMs and give you our definitely must starts. Is Devante Smith on the list?
Should be.
I don't know. We like him, though,
Should
right?
be.
He should be. And Tom Brady, the GOAT, just a few months older.
He's all right.
He was actually younger than me.
Oh.
Bleh.
Well, you're just as incredible as Tom Brady.
I still believe you ate strawberries. I think you're
We'll
lying.
be right back. Mike Evans, does he get in the end zone today?
Probably.
Sure.
Yes?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
It's going up against the Giants. Why not get into the end zone?
It should be interesting.
I mean, it's a matchup. It's a Week 12 matchup. Lots of fantasy points, though.
It is a game that will be played.
It is a game that will be played. What about this guy right here?
Jalen Hurts? Oh, Jalen Hurts is going to ball today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he does it every day.
Pretty much, yeah.
And there's still people on Twitter who are like, he is not good. I
don't understand it.
Yeah, it's like the Eagles are like, we want a new quarterback. Why?
Honestly, maybe like the Eagles and Dolphins should just swap quarterbacks because neither side seemed happy with their guys. So like, why don't they just switch? Maybe they'll be happier. I don't know.
Look, we don't just give fantasy advice. We also give
like life advice,
theory.
you know?
Across the league.
Like
hey, maybe you guys should swap quarterbacks.
It's like that, you know, show trading spouses, like trading quarterbacks, right? Everybody gets happy.
They get to try it for like a month.
Right.
That could be the next Hard Knocks.
There
we can pitch NFL films on that. You heard it here first.
Please
Welcome
give us
back
monies.
The NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. Kimmy Check, Marcus Grant, and Michael F. Florio. We've been saying all show long, please send us your questions at NFL Fantasy. And now it's time to make good on our promise that maybe some questions will be answered live here on the show. So I'm going to start this one off with you, Marcus. I need help deciding between Jerry Judy and Jarvis Landry.
I am probably going to go with Jerry Judy. I just feel like he's the more explosive option of the two. I know both of them have been sort of meh most of the year. We have higher expectations for Jerry Judy, but I would go there just I think he has the higher ceiling of the two of them.
Okay, next question for you, Florio. Jackson wants to know, Odell Beckham Jr. or Elijah Moore?
I'm going with Elijah Moore there. He has been the top scoring receiver over the last month. He's been quarterback proof so far. Zach Wilson, do not mess this up.
Zach Wilson. I have so many problems with you. If you mess with Elijah Moore, we are officially beefing. All right, another question, Marcus. A.J. Dillon or Michael Pittman?
You know, I'd probably go A.J. Dillon in this. We go with Quadzilla, especially if it looks like Aaron Jones is going to be out. I know we still have to wait to get official word on that, but if he's not playing, it's for sure A.J. Dillon.
Quadzilla. That's why we love him. All right, Florio, last question for you, but we're going to get to more later on in the show. Ty Johnson, my waiver wire hero, or Javonte Williams in a PPR league?
I'm pretty sure I have these guys ranked back to back. I think I have Ty Johnson just higher. I like both of them. I would go with Johnson, though, just because I think he might get a little bit more work than Williams.
Yeah, because Melvin Gordon's still a thing in that Broncos offense. All right, those were our answers to some questions. So now let's turn it to a segment we have called all season long our Fantasy DMs. It's not weird messages. Instead, it's definitely must start.
Not pictures of people's feet unsolicited or anything?
Yeah, here, Aaron Rodgers, do you want to see my toes too? Very weird. Like, you've been weird all season long. We got to tone it down a little bit. But let's get our burner phones out and slide into some DMs respectfully. Give me a definitely must start.
My definitely must start is Miles Sanders. I had to look and make sure I had the right guy right here. Yeah, Miles Sanders going against the New York Football Giants, which, by the way, the baseball Giants left 60 years ago. You can give that up now. Look, I know it's been kind of frustrating for Miles Sanders this year, but the Eagles have been the most run-heavy team in the league over the last month to 6 weeks. I mean, they are really trying to establish the run as much as possible, and they've been very effective in doing it. So now with no Jordan Howard this week, yes, it means we will probably see a little bit more Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell, but it does open things up for Miles Sanders to get a bigger workload. And if for whatever reason this game kind of goes sideways and they have to throw the football, we know Sanders can be effective in the passing game. So the matchup is good. The opportunity, I think, is going to be large. So I really love Miles Sanders today.
I agree with that one. Florio, what about you? A definitely must start?
Yeah, this guy was in my DMs today. I was like, don't worry, Melvin Gordon. I'm starting you everywhere I have you. I really like Melvin Gordon in this matchup. The Chargers have been struggling against the run all year long, but they are good against the pass, especially receivers. I think a way that the Broncos are going to try to slow down that high-powered Chargers offense is by keeping them off the field and running the ball a good amount. We know Melvin Gordon is going to see double-digit touches. He's done it every game this year. So with that, with it being a good matchup, and with the fact that he gets more usage near the goal line than Javonte Williams, I think he is a must-start. We've been excited for Williams all year, but Gordon is the one that has been the more productive fantasy piece.
I know. I feel bad. I feel like we tried to cancel Melvin Gordon.
Did,
he's like, no, I am here. I am staying.
That's sort of what happened, yeah.
I know. I'm so sorry, Melvin Gordon. I think all of us were like, Javonte Williams is it, but you're still there and you're doing incredible things. All right, my definitely must start. It's none other than Elijah Moore. We said that we're really talking about this Jets game like it's a Super Bowl between the Texans, but Elijah Moore, in all seriousness, should be incredibly efficient today against the Texans, who have allowed 6 top 20 wide receivers in the last 4 games. If you look at Moore's average the last 3 weeks, you see it right here. 23.5 fantasy points. That's second amongst all fantasy wide receivers. So for all of those reasons, you got to get him into your lineup. Let's just hope Zach Wilson does not ruin our day.
Yes, agreed.
Please, Zach.
Agreed.
We did give you some good with our definitely must starts, but we always need some bad, right? A fantasy villain that someone is going to play spoiler to today is who, Florio?
This guy is not just a fantasy villain. This guy is like the biggest villain in the NFL right now, and it is Bill Belichick. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Bills fan who had to watch you dominate the division for 2 decades of my life. But early on in the year, it seemed like Damian Harris was a really reliable running back that we could trust and start each week, which is, I mean, look at how the guy dresses, first of all. Second of all, after Harris got hurt, then it looked like Ramondre Stevenson was a great option. Now we're seeing these 2 split drives. We're seeing Brandon Bolden get used on 3rd down. To me, it makes it tough to trust any of the Patriots running backs more than like a deep RB2 or something like that. So Belichick, you took 3 good fantasy pieces and you made us not really be able to use them. So you are a villain.
This is like the meanest I've ever seen Florio. Calling out head coaches as villains. I love it. I also love the music choice. Good job today, guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Marcus,
Very dark.
The ominous music, I'm sure will come back when you give us your fantasy villain.
Yeah, well, you know, I had Miles Sanders as basically my fantasy hero. So now Myles Gaskin is going to be the Bizarro to Miles Sanders' Superman. See, except without all the weird syntax and bad grammar that Bizarro. It's a whole thing. Don't worry about it. Part of it is Myles Gaskin has not had any sort of consistency so far this year. He has not had back-to-back weeks with double-digit fantasy points. He scored 18 last week, so that doesn't bode particularly well. And even though the Panthers have been a little bit leaky in the run game lately, they still overall have been very good at stopping running backs. On top of it, they give up next to no receiving yards to the running back position. So if the Dolphins have to go into passing mode, it still doesn't really bode well for Myles Gaskin's opportunity. So I would just stay away as much as I could this week.
What is this topic bar? Odd number versus even number weeks? It's like, week 12, so.
So in theory, that doesn't mean, that means he's going to be bad. Yeah, it's like I know things like that usually don't count for anything. Like it's just bad process. But like he has been so consistent with it that it's almost hard to ignore now.
He's so consistently inconsistent.
You guys want to talk about consistently inconsistent? A guy who you love this week, Antonio Gibson. Am I right to think
you're really salty about this?
I am that. Antonio Gibson has let me down every single time I started him, right? I go and I put him on the bench, and then he has a decent game, and then I don't like you, Antonio Gibson. Do you want to know why? Because you've only been a top 10 running back just once this season. I feel more comfortable starting J.D. McKissick on a weekly basis than I do Antonio Gibson. So of all the shiny, amazing things you said about him, Florio, he is a villain. You have hurt me. You've broken my heart. I'm so done with you.
The question is, are you starting him this week?
No.
All right, so everybody else can start Antonio Gibson this week.
I think this is the most fired up, Kimmy, I've ever seen you about a player.
No, I'm pissed. I'm pissed off at Antonio Gibson. Looking at his ADP, in all seriousness, right, of like not even a personal thing. You get drafted in the 2nd round, and this is what you do.
It's been a huge disappointment.
It's bad. And I think this definitely means huge implications for next season as well. So Antonio Gibson, you and I are beefing today and always. I will not start you. You guys make your own decisions on if you'll start him or not. What about Carson Wentz? We were hot on him for a minute, and now we're like, yeah, no, right?
I mean, still
decent option.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Najee Harris.
He's good.
Easy.
Get him in there every week.
I love it says, don't sleep on me, because next we're going to talk about sleepers. Najee Harris has never been a sleeper, will never be a sleeper. He is a fantasy MVP, and we will be right back. Welcome back into NFL Fantasy Game Day presented by Geico. We're getting closer and closer to kickoff, also closer and closer to seeing that guy, Jonathan Taylor, probably score all the touchdowns. 50 points again? Yes, no?
I'm going to go with no probably this week.
Darn. What about Mac Jones? During the commercial break, Florio said he does not like
150 yards and 1 touchdown coming up, and then he'll get all the credit in the world.
Oh, this is like the most feisty Florio I've ever seen.
Point to the lie, though. Like, no lies detected, right? I mean, he's been basically Mac Jones' superpower this year has been not screwing it up. Like, that's basically what he's done.
I know, but now he's in the conversation like, should he be Offensive Rookie of the Year? I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
Did Naji Harris retire?
I didn't say it. They said it.
Jamar
the
Chase
national
also
media
deserves
said
it over.
Right?
Not us.
Just saying.
The national media said it, not us. We are creeping, getting closer and closer to kickoff. So in case you're just joining us, let's get you caught up on some of our latest injury news, looking at our early game actives and inactives. Big news for the guys who are playing. Saquon Barkley, he will be one of the guys on the field. Damian Harris, Cordarrelle Patterson, as well as Hunter Henry. A.J. Brown is out. Antonio Brown is out as well. Looking at our later games, Elijah Mitchell is questionable, as is Allen Lazard and Marquise Hollywood Brown. Aaron Jones, still a game-time decision. We say go ahead and rock with A.J. Dillon if he does play. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, he is expected to play. So we'll continue to get you guys updated as we get closer and closer to kickoff. But for now, let's go ahead and get to some burning questions, okay? I want to start with you, Marcus. Speaking of young guys doing good things, this guy was a pretty good rookie. He's pretty good now as well. Justin Jefferson. He's the only player in the NFL with 100-plus receiving yards in each of his last 2 games. So can he make it 3 in a row against your San Francisco 49ers?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like the way they're feeding him targets, the way he's playing this year, I mean, he is, if he's not in the ranks of the elite wide receivers in this league, then he's pretty much knocking on the door, right? I mean, he has been so good. Every time he does something, the name that keeps popping up is Randy Moss, so that should tell you something well into year 2 of his career. So I don't see any reason why he couldn't. Against the Niners secondary has gotten better, but it has been beaten up this year, and they have given up some big games. So I think he could definitely get the century mark again.
So yes, for 3 in a row from Mr. Justin Jefferson. Florio, what about Jamar Chase, a guy who could actually be in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year? He's the wide receiver 3 through week 7, but now he's the wide receiver 36 over the last 4 weeks. Still very good, but not as good as he started. So can he get back on track today versus the Steelers?
Can he? Yes. And I think he will. I had him ranked around in the top 5 because the Steelers haven't been as strong against wide receivers as they had been in years past. Plus, we know Chase hasn't seen the volume like he has the last month, like he was early on, but he still doesn't need a whole lot of volume. He's one of the best downfield weapons in the game. I wouldn't be surprised if he found the end zone today. So I don't think he's a lock to be a top 5 wide receiver, but he has that upside each and every week.
Okay, Jamar Chase, we like that upside. Please get back on track. Now, last one, Marcus, last burning question. Let's stick in this game, the Steelers and the Bengals. Naji Harris. He's the only player in the NFL with 15-plus fantasy points in 9 straight games. That's 9. So can he make it 10 today?
Yeah, let's just go with an even 10 for Naji Harris. I mean, partially because where else are the Steelers going for offense here, right? I mean, sure, there's Pat Freiermuth and there's Deontay Johnson, but this thing revolves around Naji Harris. He's getting a ton of targets, so that's going to be a big chunk of it right there, just the passes he catches out of the backfield. We know he's going to get some yards. He'll probably find his way into the end zone. I have him as a guy that you absolutely need to be starting this week. Not that you weren't anyway, but if for whatever reason you had some weird dilemma where you got a humble brag with a bunch of running backs, Naji Harris has to be in your lineup this week, so I think 15 points is probably a pretty easy, safe bet for him. And
look what he did week 3 when these teams faced off last time. 19 targets in that game. He's not only a running back, he's a pass-catching option as well. All right, those are some burning questions, but it's time now for Fantasy Insurance presented by Geico. Now, in fantasy football, there's these things. They're called sleepers. They're guys that we shouldn't be sleeping on because they have very good matchups or we just like their ability. So let's go ahead and get a make it or break it moment with an incredible Steeler. I mean, sleeper, not a Steeler. Or it could be a Steeler, but a sleeper. And the beautiful music.
Well, it's not, and this is gonna make me doze off. It's a good thing I had some coffee this morning. I'm doing this again. We're going back to Laviska Shenault.
Okay.
We're doing it.
Okay.
look, if you watch the show, if you listen to the podcast, you know I have been a stan for Laviska Shenault for over a year now. And he has sort of rocked me to sleep much of this year. But, you know, Jamal Agnew is out, so hopefully this means that Shenault moves back inside to the slot where they can use him more. They can find more ways to get him the football. Urban Meyer also saying they want to use him out of the backfield, get him some running back touches, whatever. However you got to get the football in his hands, just do it. Please. I just want to save some face, if nothing else, after being a stand for most of the year.
I think you're going to say Laviska Shenault every single week.
I may, because eventually I'll be right. It's like predicting the end of the world. Like, eventually it's going to happen, right?
All right, let's keep it going with our sweet lullaby music. Who is a sleeper for you, Florio?
Tyrod Taylor, a big personal favorite of mine, but this is all about the matchup this week. Taylor, the Jets defense is a mess. Like they've struggled against the pass as of late. I said earlier they have been the worst defense against the run, both in the last month and on the year. Tyrod Taylor can run as well when he has to, so I think he could take advantage of the Jets' struggles against the pass and run, and I'm expecting this to be a pretty competitive game all around, which only helps Taylor, I believe, for fantasy.
I just want to like rock my little fantasy baby to sleep while I'm talking my sleeper. I'm just gonna rock. Prop. Here she blows. Taylor Heinecke, what's up, buddy? What's up, little baby? That's my sleeper. Playing on Monday Night Football against the Seattle Seahawks. Oh yeah, I should lower my voice for this sleeper. He's had 5 games in a row with over 20+ fantasy points. That's not so bad for a streaming option, especially looking at this matchup against Seattle, who have allowed the 3rd most passing yards per game this season. Taylor, no shade. I don't like your running back Antonio Gibson, but I do like you. Also like when you get me over 20 fantasy points consistently. So rockabye baby on Taylor Heinecke. All right, those are our favorite sleepers. Coming up next on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico, we have some very important analysis for you, aka who we want to get in our flex spot. Look at Joey B. God, I love him so much, it's not even funny. I love him more than Tom Brady. I will say that. But we do get Gronk, who's fun, and he's good, and he should be in your starting lineup. We will be right back. Big Ben. Has anyone started him in fantasy this season? Like,
not on purpose.
Are people into Ben Roethlisberger stuff?
As a fantasy quarterback? Not really.
He can get you a nice 12 fantasy points.
I mean,
Listen, we just need him to get it to Pat Freiermuth and to Naji Harris. That's all we care about.
Yep.
yeah, I want him to distribute the football, but I don't want to start him on my fantasy team.
Correct. Our producers in my ear making a joke about Antonio Gibson. Still mad about Antonio Gibson. But welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day presented
I'm just going to
by
randomly
Geico.
text you the name Antonio Gibson during the day
Don't
today.
do that, just to piss I would get angry immediately and see red. In case you're just joining us, I'm Kimmy Chucks. He's Marcus Gray. He over there is Michael F. Florio. As a reminder, continue to send us your lineup questions at NFL Fantasy. We'll try to get to some more on the show, but we'll definitely try to get to you back on Twitter. All right, guys. Flex decision is always a tough decision, but do not sweat because we have all of your answers. Marcus, you're already flexing.
Yeah.
So who we flexing this week?
We're starting with Devante Freeman with the Baltimore Ravens. And I know we were sort of worried about how this was going to work out with Latavius Murray coming back and getting healthy again. But it actually has worked out pretty well. We saw last week that it was Freeman and not Murray who kind of took the lead in that backfield. We know the Ravens are going to be run heavy. That's just part of who they are offensively. And on top of it, the Browns have really been struggling against opposing run games recently. So you're talking about a lead running back in a run-heavy offense that has a good matchup. It seems like a really good flex option.
I feel like I said this on Fantasy Live last week. Like our question actually got answered of which running back is it going to be in this offense. It's going to be Devonta Freeman. So I agree with that flex start. Florio, what about you though?
Sticking with the same team, I'm going with Rashad Bateman here. And I know Bateman last week disappointed, but there was no Lamar Jackson, so I'll give him a pass on that. Besides that game, he has seen between 6 and 8 targets in every game this year. He's given us double-digit fantasy points in a few straight games up until last week. So I think that he brings a very safe floor. I don't think we have yet seen the upside that Bateman possesses, but this could happen this week because the Browns just struggle against the pass. They struggle against receivers, tight ends, so I'm excited for the Ravens passing game this week, and that includes Rashad Bateman.
I love it. And please continue to pick Rashad Bateman up. I don't know how every single week we have this show, and he's still so widely available on the waiver wire. We like him. We believe in him. So please, please pick him up, especially ahead of the playoffs. My favorite flex start is none other than T. Higgins. I've said him a few times during the show this season, and it's because I believe in him. And I definitely believe in him in this kind of contested matchup, right? These two rival teams going back at it. He had a decent game back in week 3, but I really think this week is the week that he can break out. Now, the Steelers, they've allowed 2 top 15 wide receivers last week versus the Chargers in that wild shootout situation. So why not be able to allow that today? Get some Jamar Chase involved, get him back into our lives, get some T. Higgins as well. See right there, 8 targets a game since week 7. Not so bad. So I like a little T. Higgins flex situation.
Kind of random. I'm watching these highlights, and Chad Ochocinco's name is just rolling through my mind.
Oh, I miss Ochocinco.
Yeah, he's still fun on Twitter.
He's always fun. Listen, I met him on an NFL Honors red carpet, and I was like, that was a train wreck that I love. I will interview you all the time, Ochocinco. But it's time now for Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, Marcus, Jonathan Taylor, JTT, in our hearts, he has been rolling. So will he top 100 yards on the ground for the 3rd straight game?
I feel like there's some home improvement joke in there that I just don't have in my head right now. I think he's going to ball out again this week. I mean, at this point, right now, he is the preeminent running back in the National Football League. With Derrick Henry on injured reserve, all eyes are on Jonathan Taylor. And more importantly, the Colts are starting to lean on him a little bit more, which is something we've been looking for a long time. And they sort of eased him into the season. And now at this point, I think Frank Reich and the offense are just like, you know what? Full speed ahead. Let's just give this guy as many touches as we can. Put him in there. Let's let him work full send. Let's go. So I think even against what's been a pretty good Tampa Bay front this year, I know Vita Vea a little bit banged up, and that does make a difference. I think it's going to be another good week for Taylor. Not a 53-point week. I'll say that. I know I'm going to be the party pooper here. Yeah, he's not going to get you 50 points, but I think it'll still be pretty good.
All right. Well, DraftKings has Taylor right around 80.5 rushing yards. So what is your fantasy projection for him against the Bucs?
Oh, I think he can get the triple digits on the ground this week. I really do think that's possible, just because the volume he's getting there, the way the Colts are using him. So I think you can get 100 100 yards on the ground. I think he can get another, say 30 to 40 yards through the air. I think it's going to be a very good game for Jonathan Taylor. Let's just throw a touchdown in there for good measure because it's the holidays and we're in the giving season. So let's just give him a touchdown, too.
Okay, and I see your projection right there. A very humble 22 fantasy points. That's like the floor.
After 53 points, yeah, like 22 is a big come down. But, for us regular muggles, like, it's great. 22 points is awesome.
Keep that up. Keep that up, Jonathan Taylor. Now, Florio, Joe Mixon, he's the only player in the NFL with 2+ touchdowns in 3 straight games. So can he do it for the 4th time today against the rival Steelers?
I'm going to say no. I think he finds the end zone once. It's hard to score touchdowns in the National Football League, let alone score 2 a game, 3 in a row. He's on a great run right now, but I'm going to take the I don't know if he's going to get 2 touchdowns. I think he gets at least 1, though.
Okay, 1 touchdown. It's still very good. DraftKings has Joe Mixon right around 71.5 rushing yards. So give me a fantasy projection for him.
I'm projecting him for around 17 fantasy points. I think he finds the end zone. I think he catches a couple of balls, sits around somewhere close to 100 yards. So I think that's a really good day for Joe Mixon. But I think this is going to be a back-and-forth game. I think we're going to see the Bengals throwing a good amount as well. So a good game for Mixon, but not a great one like he had last week.
Okay, but still possibly getting in the end zone with 1 solo touchdown. Still very, very good. Joe Mixon fantasy managers. Now that was Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use the promo code WHOSCORES to claim your deposit bonus up to $1,000. You must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only as well. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for more details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, guys, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, we got to give out some thanks to all those fantasy players who have showed up for us this season. So, Marcus, start us off. Who are you thankful for? We're going around the dinner table. Who are you thankful for this year?
Well, I'm thankful for the Dawson. I don't wait for Thanksgiving to be over. Yeah, Dawson Knox. If we go way back, like rewind back to the spring, I wrote a four-part series on NFL.com about tight ends. It was a thing that I started. I'm like, this seems like a great idea. Then I wrote the first one, and I'm like, this was a terrible idea. Who said I should do this? But when I got to the part about sort of the deep sleepers and the guys who could have breakout years, Dawson Knox was on the list. I thought he could have a nice sort of sleeper-type season. I didn't think we would be, after Thanksgiving, talking about him as a top 7 tight end. That's what he is right now. And this is even with him having missed some time with an injury. He has really integrated himself well into what the Bills are doing in their passing game. And at a position where we are just hurting for any sort of depth, it has been really nice to see Dawson Knox step up and kind of fill a void for us in fantasy.
It's been the waiver wire tight ends this season. So you know what, Dawson, I'm thankful for you as well. Now, Florio, it's your turn next around the dinner table. Give some thanks.
I'm thankful for Jalen Hurts. And similar to Dawson Knox, like if we go back to the start of the year, there was people saying, oh, Jalen Hurts isn't a real NFL quarterback. There's people in the middle of the year, we heard that Gardner Minshew might be taking over at some point for Jalen Hurts. We keep hearing that the Eagles aren't sold on him, and all this guy has done is ball out. If you just use his rushing numbers alone, coming into Week 12, he would have been the RB7 on the year. He's top 5 in fantasy points per game amongst quarterbacks. He is, after today, likely going to be the top scoring fantasy quarterback on the year so far. And the Eagles are in the playoff race. So despite the fact that so many people counted Jalen Hurts out before he even got a chance, he is out here and he's balling out and giving us great fantasy results each and every week.
Hey, but those Eagles fans, they still want him gone. Slightly joking on that one. But in all seriousness, Jalen Hurts has been incredible. Sometimes we don't know how you get it done, but you always get at least 20 fantasy points. And we appreciate that. Now, it's my turn to give some thanks. And, I'm thankful for so much this year, especially Jonathan Taylor. And I know that could seem a little bit chalky and weird, like this turkey noise that I'm sure you're hearing on the show as well. But if you look at draft season, right, think back to earlier this season when we were doing fantasy drafts, everyone kind of looked at us crazy. And we were like, no, Jonathan Taylor is still a first-round running back. People were like, no, it's a bad offense. No, all the injuries, Carson Wentz, the O-line's all banged up. Like, it's not Jonathan Taylor. And I listened to my gut, which was, no, I'm still going to draft him early and take him as a top 5 running back. And it's paid off. Nearly 30 fantasy points a game since week 4. He has 5 more fantasy points this season than Cooper Kupp. Everyone wants to say how great Cooper Kupp is and Cooper Kupp being the fantasy MVP. No, why not Jonathan Taylor? So JTT, thank you so much. And also thank you for all you're doing on Hard Knocks. You're very calm, cool, and collected, but, fire it up a little bit on there. It's time for a very quick break here on NFL Fantasy Game Day, but when we come back, we're predicting our top scorers and our favorite last-minute starts, so make sure you stay tuned. Jalen Hurts. Florio's thankful for him. We love you, Jalen Hurts.
He's awesome.
He is pretty great.
Is cool. And he's like a swaggy dude, too. You guys know I'm all about the swag in the league. We'll be right back. Final advice coming up next. Tom Brady. Is he going to be the MVP again this season?
Probably. Might be. And in 20 years, it'll be Mac Jones doing this, so.
God, Florio is feisty. I love feisty Florio.
It's him and Mac Jones, and you and Antonio Gibson. I need to find somebody to just be salty at right now.
I know. He's awkwardly stuck in the middle. Maybe you can be salty at Ryan Tannehill.
I just feel bad for Ryan Tannehill.
I know. It's like, it's not him. It's not his problem.
He's done nothing wrong. All the guys around him got Thanos. Like, he just can't do anything.
Like you said, like the fact that he had to go introduce himself to teammates this week, it's like, that's a little concerning. But welcome in. It's now 15 minutes to kick off, presented by Geico. A look at our notable actives and inactives for our early games. Patterson active, Damian Harris active. Saquon's going to play, as well as Hunter Henry. A.J. Brown, speaking of Tannehill, he's out. So is Antonio Brown and Michael Carter. Make sure all those guys are out of your lineup or in your lineup if they're active and going to play. We continually say, send us your questions at NFL Fantasy. And now we're going to get to some last minute ones. People getting their lineups set. You guys ready? I'm going to start with Florio this time. Ooh. All right. DK Metcalf are Marquise Hollywood Brown. My other receivers are Debo and Cooper Kupp.
They're close, but I would go with DK Metcalf there. I like the matchup a little bit more. Washington has struggled against the pass all year long, so I would go with DK there.
All right, DK Metcalf, a little Monday Night Football action. Marcus, what about this question? Jalen Waddle or Mike Williams at the flex?
Ooh, you know what? I think I want Mike Williams this week. It was nice to see him bounce back last week. Had a huge game, and I think I like that offense. I like that passing game more than I like Miami's.
Agreed. We like some BMW in our lives. All right, back around to you, Florio. Do I start Cam Newton or Russell Wilson this week? This is a good one. I think a lot of people have had kind of similar dilemmas.
For me, it's easily Cam Newton. He gives us more points with his legs. It's a better matchup. Russell Wilson, I know he does have a good matchup as well, but he's been struggling ever since that finger injury, so I would play it safe and go Cam.
I know. I was like, Russ is going to be great after that finger injury. He's got, I don't know, Jesus juice in him. He's going to bounce back. Not as much.
He rehabbed it like 19 hours a day, apparently, which is like, did you do it when you were asleep, or you just...
He's weird. He's
Mr. Unlimited.
He's Russell.
Mr. Unlimited.
All right, last one. Matthew Stafford or Kirk Cousins?
I think I still lean Matthew Stafford in this one. All the reports of him being banged up and dealing with multiple injuries is a little bit concerning, but I still think even as good as Kirk Cousins has been, he's been very good lately.
Incredible.
I know you mentioned that on Friday. I still think I lean Matt Stafford in that one.
I think he's just said those reports just to mess with people's heads. And be like, bang, I'm so good. We're bouncing back, baby. It's time now for Sunday Fun. Speaking of bouncing back, baby, let's get some top scorers in the house. Marcus, who's it going to be?
My top scorer is Naji Harris. I talked about him being a must-start earlier in this show. The guy has been pretty much lights out all year long. I mean, he's been quietly consistent to the point that we don't even really talk about how good he is on a week-to-week basis because we just expect him to go out and get you 15 or more fantasy points. But I think this week against a Bengals run defense that has not been great this year, and we know the volume he gets, I'm looking for him to have a huge day. Couple touchdowns wouldn't be surprising for him.
Not mad at a couple of touchdowns. What about you, Florio? Top scorer on Week 12?
Hot take, Christian McCaffrey, I think, will be the top scorer. It's a good matchup for him against the Dolphins, who struggle mightily against the run and the pass. And I know Jonathan Taylor's the RB1 right now in our hearts and in real life, but I still think Christian McCaffrey is the safest bet to get you like 24, 25 fantasy points each week, just off of the volume he gets in the passing game alone.
All right, CMC, a little chalky, but we love it. I'm making fun of all the fans who are like, that's such a chalky pick. It's like, well, yeah, you asked who's going to be a top scorer. Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to say Matthew Stafford, and I said this answer prior to knowing he was all banged up. That's also the reason why I'm like, maybe he's just messing with me. Because I'm still going to stick to my guns and say that it's going to be Matt Stafford facing the Green Bay Packers. If you look at what happened last week, and though I understand Kirk Cousins has been playing incredibly, the Packers gave up all types of yards and all types of touchdowns to him. I think Matthew Stafford can do the same in an even more high-powered offense. So I'm going to stick to my guns here and say it'll be Matthew Stafford. All right, speaking of quarterbacks, though, a must-start quarterback for you, Marcus.
Oh, all hail Ty God. Yeah, Tyrod Taylor. He's back in our lives now. We heard Florio,
I love this.
Heard Florio talking about him a little bit earlier. He was on my list of must-start quarterbacks at the top of the show. A lot of it is because of that right there. The fact that we know he can get out of the pocket, he can run, had a couple of rushing touchdowns last week. Hopefully he gets the passing game more involved too, because I know a lot of folks are starting Brandon Cooks and hoping he has a big day. So hopefully that starts to get integrated some more. But just in terms of pure matchup and pure ability, Tyrod Taylor should definitely be in line, especially if you're talking 2 QB lineups. He absolutely should be started. But even a lot of just standard 1 quarterback lineups, he has some value this week.
I have Tyrod in a lot of leagues this week. Speaking of running quarterbacks, though, I'm going with Cam Newton, and I've been getting a lot of questions this week. Cam Newton or this guy? And almost always, it's Cam Newton for me. I have him as a top 6 quarterback this week. The Dolphins struggle against the run. They struggle against the pass. We know Cam will run, especially near the goal line. In the little bit that we've seen him, he already has 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing. He's just getting the job done. Get him in your lineup.
Yes, and we get the fashion back in our lives as well, which is what I
hats.
love.
So many hats.
So many hats. So many hats. It's incredible. But earlier I was talking about how good Kirk Cousins has been. I know you mentioned it earlier, Marcus, but I like him against your San Francisco 49ers. I'm sorry about that.
Facts are facts.
Facts are facts, and the facts are he threw 341 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns just last week on the road. He's averaging right here, you see it, 23 fantasy points a game. So I like all those things. I like you, Kirky. So keep it up, baby. All right, those were our running backs. What about some must-start I said those were our quarterbacks. Let's talk about some must-start running backs. There we go.
Yeah, you're so excited. You couldn't even get them all out.
So excited about Kirk Cousins.
Let's go with James Robinson against who are they're playing the Falcons. That's who it is. Partially because he's playing the Falcons is why I like him this week, but partially just because the Jaguars realized after the first few weeks of the season that, hey, maybe we should lean on this guy. He had a great rookie season. Why not give him an opportunity to be productive? Since he's come back from the injury, everything has been pretty good for him there. So I expect plenty of volume, even if they do integrate Laviska Shenault a little bit into that backfield. Robinson should get plenty of touches, and the matchup is incredibly favorable for him.
I love Robinson this week, and Kimmy, you might want
earmuffs.
Earmuffs
Earmuffs.
right now.
Oh, what are you going to say?
Earmuffs.
Antonio Gibson.
Dude, get out of here. Stop.
He hasn't been good by any stretch as of late, outside of the one game against the Bucs. This is more about the matchup. Seattle allows the second most fantasy points to running backs on the year, and I think this will be a competitive game. You spoke up Taylor Heinecke. That's your boy. I think if he could keep it close with a struggling Russell Wilson, we could see more volume go Antonio Gibson's way. Hopefully he finds the end zone. If he doesn't get the job done this week, I don't know when you trust him.
Oh, yeah, let's just give him all the way to week 12 to get it done, and then it's like, no. I'm so triggered by Antonio Gibson.
Salty about this.
My must-start running back. I have to be salty about something in my life. All right, my must-start running back this week is Devonta Freeman. I know, Marcus, you agree. Florio, you as well. This is a good matchup against the Browns, and I know a lot of questions. Is it him? Is it Latavius Murray? You just have to look at the production from last week. He outtouched him 22-11, so I think, or 22-12, excuse me. So I think Devonta Freeman, a clear number 1 RB for the Ravens. All right, wide receiver time. Give me a must start, Marcus.
Well, you had Devante Freeman. I have Devante Smith at the wide receiver position. I mean, the guy's been very good. He was the rookie wide receiver that I thought was going to have the best season. I didn't expect Jamar Chase to just be bananas like he was at the beginning of the year. But Smith has very quietly started to pick things up. He's getting a lot more targets. The passing game in Philadelphia is pretty concentrated. It is Dallas Goedert, and it's Devante Smith. And I like the matchup this week against the Giants. I think he gets a ton of targets. Maybe he gets over 100 yards and a touchdown again. But regardless, if you've got him on your roster, I don't know how you keep him out of your lineup at this point.
Yeah, I love Devante Smith, especially this week. My must-start, Kimmy, I think you might like this one a little bit more.
Okay.
It's Tyler Lockett.
Okay.
He's been very up and down this year, but he's coming off of a big game. And Washington, they allow the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They're up there as well against receivers. They're in the top 3 there. So I just think it's a favorable matchup. And what, again, I think will be a competitive game here between these two teams. And we know Russ is going to take a couple of deep shots to Lockett, so I'd be starting him this week.
All right, let's go ahead and stick in this game. Spoiler alert, it's not going to touch anywhere near Antonio Gibson, especially because we're talking wide receivers. But I do like Scary Terry going up against Seattle. I know I talked up Taylor Heinecke. I love Terry McLaurin. I love what he's done the last few weeks. If you look at receiving yards per reception, he's creating space, he's creating separation, and I love that for some fantasy points. All right, must start tight end. Marcus, give me somebody.
Shout out to our friends, the fantasy footballers, because the Muth is Luth. He's been loose for a few weeks now, and I think it continues this week. Again, you talk about concentrated passing games, right? In Pittsburgh, it's Deontay Johnson. It's Pat Freiermuth with some Naji Harris sprinkled in. Florio talked about his touchdown scoring ability over the last few weeks. I think that continues this week. So, I mean, at this point, Pat Freiermuth feels like almost a must-start now.
Yeah, I would definitely be starting him. I'd also be using Evan Ingram. You pick a stat, yards, catches, touchdowns, fantasy points. The Eagles allow the most of them to tight ends. Every tight end but Nick Vannett, who has a target since week 7, has top double-digit fantasy points against them. Plus, the Giants are very thin at receiver this week, and they're missing their backup tight ends. Evan Ingram, this is the perfect spot for you. If you can't do it this week, you never will be.
Please, Evan Ingram, my lock for the tight end spot. It's going to be none other than Dan Arnold facing the Miami Dolphins today. He's had 10-plus fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. Targets are there. Opportunities are there. I like him. All right, quick before the show ends, I need your fantasy lock of the week, Marcus. It's absolutely going to happen.
Evan Ingram's going to score 15-plus fantasy points. I don't know if it's even happened this year. In fact, I know it hasn't happened this year. I mean, all the things Florio said, right? The matchup is amazing. The Giants are depleted amongst pass catchers. It has to be this week. If it's not this week, it will never, ever happen. I mean, you know, his time with the Giants might be short, so it certainly probably won't happen with the Giants. So that's it, 15-plus points from Evan Ingram.
Mine is Elijah Moore will be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver for the 3rd time in 4 weeks. It's a good matchup. He's getting all the volume. No Corey Davis. But my real one, Antonio Gibson, will be a top 20 running back this week.
Dude, you are so annoying. I'm not a betting woman, but I will bet that is not going to happen because he sucks. All right, my fantasy lock is that 3 different Cincinnati Bengals are going to land themselves within the top 6 at their respective positions. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to jinx myself, but maybe it's a quarterback and a running back, a wide receiver,
I got a pretty good guess.
Kicker and a defense. Who knows? But I do think that 3 different Bengals will get it done and land themselves within the top 6. Oh. All right, kickoff. It's just a minute away. We want to make sure you guys are set. Thanks for rocking it with us this Sunday. We'll see you next Sunday as well. 3 of those guys that we just saw coming out in the orange.
And not Antonio Gibson.
And not Antonio Gibson. Hey, Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be great. Here's the Giants as well. Happy Week 12. Happy Fantasy Game Day. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you guys had an incredible Thanksgiving.